Greetings, Goddess Body Mind Spirit community. This is Tyra Omilade, your goddess guru, your sister friend. And you know, I love helping women align with their life purpose using the power of ancient wisdom and the goddess centered lifestyle. And I want to come on today and talk to you a little bit about these big astrological events that are happening. I may talk about them more than once, or maybe I can just get it all into this particular recording. But I was sharing with someone earlier, and I thought, you know what? This is what I've been wanting to share with everybody regarding Saturn and Pluto. So, Saturn is moving into Pisces today, March 7th. It'll be maybe in an hour or so. And Pluto is moving into Aquarius. I don't even have the exact dates, but it's here at the end of March. I'll get it for you in a minute. Pluto is moving into Aquarius March 23rd. Okay, so it's interesting to me that, well, what I want to say is that it's important that you have an understanding of how this will work and what it will look like, and to understand primarily where we will see this, but also to understand it for your chart. But I don't want y'all assigning everything that's happening to perhaps two planetary things that are happening, Saturn and Pluto, because there's multiple things happening in your chart all at once. And it's really important sometimes to just freaking get a a reading. It's just so much better if you get a reading from somebody who knows what they're doing. And I'm not even advocating for people getting readings from me, though, if you need a reading, feel free to order one and I got you. But it's astrology is becoming so interesting and intriguing, and people are realizing that there is a lot to it that actually is real. Like, everyone is like, wow, that's exactly what's happening. You get a reading with someone who knows what they're talking about, and you're like, that's on point. That's on point. um and it just has everybody wanting to learn. But we are in this information age where, and I'm not fussing, I'm just being real with you, because if you look at what I put on my graphic, I want you to learn and apply astrology in a practical manner that actually brings real results. And so, back in the day when astrology was more common, and it's what people lived by, astrology, they would just go get somebody who knew how to do astrology to help them. And in this information age, thank goodness we can go and learn more about astrology. We have the internet, at our fingertips, and we can just type things in and um, get a clue about astrology. But that's actually a little bit of a disadvantage. And so part of what I want to do is to teach you, how do you use astrology? How do you use what you're learning and hearing about on the internet with, all of us who know astrology talking about it. But how do you grasp it in a way that actually will help you? And so that's what I'm always working on, helping you all with. But that is the main thing that I want to talk about with this this particular astrology talk, is how do you understand Saturn and how do you understand Pluto transit? Saturn is in Pisces, Pluto in Aquarius. And part of it is starting with, do not assign everything that's going on to just two planets, because you have a chart that has a whole lot of other stuff going on in that chart that could be activating. Some of it might be more powerful than Pluto and Aquarius, Pluto and Saturn, because maybe you don't have anything that's being activated in a life-changing way by those planets being where they are. Um, so that's number one. But number two, let's talk about what these planets can mean. First and foremost, it's really important for everybody to understand. Number one, Saturn is a visible planet, which means that it can bring tangible results into our lives. And so it does have implications for what's going on in our chart personally. It is also a very slow moving planet, which means that it will create significant changes in how it activates your chart. There's times when your chart is always activated by each planet, but sometimes it's more of an activation than not. And I'm trying not to get into too much detail because that doesn't actually really matter. If you don't know how this is affecting you and you don't know a lot about astrology, just go get a reading, okay? Um, but what Saturn is considered to be is a social planet. It will bring social change. Jupiter and Pluto, social planets. And so they're slow, and so it means that they will spend a lot of time in one sign, and that gives us a lot to work with. We get to spend a lot of times working on whatever Saturn is highlighting. Now, whatever house Saturn is in for you, it is going to bring change in that house, even if it's not activating any planets. Okay. It will bring a lot of change. Um, and so it's always beneficial. It's always beneficial, but I really want y'all to think about this. How is it impacting society? That I'm telling you, this is the number one thing you really want to be thinking about. But I'm also going to give you some thoughts about what you will see in your own life too. Pluto is even more slow moving than Saturn. So the slower the moving planet, the more powerful of a change that planet can create. And Pluto brings changes it's a generational change. So generations have a certain way of showing up and being, and Pluto is that planet that helps to describe that. Well, the other generational planets are Neptune and Uranus. And it's because they take so long. Like Uranus will stay in the sun. I think it's 9 years, 7, 9 years, something like that. Neptune will stay in a sign, forever. Oh my gosh. I don't know I'm not really, I've never committed that to memory, but Neptune will stay in a sign for a very, very long time. Pluto is even longer. These are like upwards of 10, 20 something years, maybe in one sign. I can't remember what it is, but anywho, they'll stay someplace forever. So for instance, Pluto entered into Capricorn, I think it was 2007, entered into Capricorn in 2007, created that crisis. And it's been there since 2007. And here we are at 2023, right? That's some time right there, baby. That's, over 20 years in one sign. And so that describes that group of people, the babies born from 2007 up to now. And then there's going to be just a few born in Aquarius in the next 3 months, from March, the end of March to June. The babies born there, they're going to be the first Pluto and Aquarius babies. We've never seen these babies before. They're the first of their generation. And then it's going to go back into Pluto. Pluto will go back into Capricorn, and it'll stay there until sometime through the top of next year. I can't remember exactly how far into 2024. So we have generations that are the same. They have some of the same ways of thinking and being. There's qualities and characteristics. And it's kind of like they are here to bring whatever the sign is for Pluto, they're here to bring that energy. That's going to be their contribution to society, is why we're all so different. So, to a certain degree, okay, millennials got the way that they are. That's because they're Pluto and Scorpio. Pluto and Scorpio, they're not here to conform. They're here to like burn the whole thing down. Then after that, we have Pluto and Sagittarius. Pluto and Sagittarius, they're here to bring more enlightenment, but some of them will be ultra religious because Sagittarius, is free as it is actually could be a sign, depending on how it manifests. It could be a sign of enlightenment, or it could be a sign of people who are like overly religious. But also, it's a generation who Sagittarius is purpose. And so you may hear that group talking quite a bit about, like, I want to have a purpose. Whatever I do, it needs to have meaning to me. So it may not be that they're going to do things that all the time make sense, because they need to have a purpose. Pluto and the millennials they want to transform. They are the ones that go into therapy. They're into astrology. They're very, very different. And that makes them, it's some of their qualities are defined by that. And then we have the Pluto and Capricorn, which I know people are talking about pandemic babies, but really these Capricorn babies started being born back in 2007, and they showed us from the beginning. They old souls. They're extremely advanced. And I think they're going to create a new society. And then Pluto and Aquarius is just going to we think things have advanced in terms of technology. They're going to take it to a whole new level, you know? So that's really what I want y'all to understand about how these planets work. This is a time of great societal change. And the best thing you can do when you're working with these planets that are moving into new signs is to just be like, you know what? It's a whole new opportunity for me in my life too. The world is changing, and I'm going to have to just go on ahead and get with it. However, that's showing up for you. Every astrological transit is happening for you, not to you. It's happening in your favor. And it's not happening like imposing itself on you. We each get to choose how the astrology will come through our lives. And we can choose to do this consciously, or we can choose to do this unconsciously. And we can't all the time like channel it where it's like it's going to happen exactly like we think it's going to happen or how we see it in our minds. But at the very least, we're giving it some type of direction that we want it to take. And so I just want to continue to encourage you all to send some well wishes into the world. What kind of world do you want to live in? For those of us who are Pluto in, let's see here, we can go back at least Pluto in Cancer, Pluto in Leo, Pluto in Virgo, and Pluto in Libra. We're all the older ones in the world right now. Some of the Pluto in Libra might be in their late 30s, but for the most part, 40 and up, we are the ones right now who really and truly need to be making our contribution based on what our generation is supposed to bring. Okay. So let me just suffice it to say this. We need to be the elders in the room and decide, I'm gonna wish something for future generations to have something better to look forward to. What can I do? How can I think 7 generations that are going to come behind me as the Native Americans in the United States? I don't know, other people may have thought this, but I know Native Americans in the United States, they were thinking 7 generations back. They're going to be, I got to live thinking about the 7 generations that will come behind me. That's what those of us who are 40 and up need to be doing with these changes that are happening. That's what we need to be doing. We need to be thinking about these young folks. We need to be thinking about the grandchildren. We need to be thinking about the great grandchildren, so on and so forth. And so, let me talk about Saturn in Pisces. So, let me be very, very clear. Saturn, let me just talk about Saturn. It's not a fun planet. It's just not. It can be a very beneficial planet, but Saturn is not fun. There's nothing fun about Saturn. And so Saturn is going to come into Pisces, and it is taking names and dishing out, you know, whatever it's going to dish out is based on what it says we have been doing here in society. So what is Pisces? Pisces is water. The question is, have we been taking care of the water? Saturn's going to come in and make us take account of the water and the water supply. And how have we been doing regarding water? That's just a really simple example, but make no mistake about it. Water is going to become more and more of a thing, more and more of something that we're talking about, because Saturn is about regulation. It's about rules. It's about boundaries. And so it brings that to whatever the topics are for the sign that it's in. And so I want to just take you back on a journey with me with Saturn in Aquarius. Have you noticed how much has come up about airlines and just the madness and craziness of the airline industry since the end of 2020? Now, I'm sure it was brewing. We caught wind of it. But once Saturn came into Aquarius, which is an air sign, and you know, it's definitely one we can relate to, um, the airline industry. All of a sudden, and I will tell y'all, I've been so consumed with USA news, I cannot give full examples across the globe, but I'm sure if people are keeping up with it, they're going to be like, oh yeah, these are the things that happen. It was a lot that went down with the airline industry. And Saturn brings rules and restrictions to wherever it is, or it brings forth like, okay, let's see here. What are you doing? Okay, you're going to get punished for that. Saturn does reward, don't get me wrong. Saturn does reward, but only after hard work. So just remember that. Like if you're taking notes, that's what you need to take a note on. Saturn is only going to reward hard work. That's just it. Saturn is going to reward patience. Saturn is going to reward endurance. So what do you need to be patient with in your life? What do you need to endure in terms of like, you have to be willing to stick and stay for your dream, right? What are you willing to endure? And, you have to have patience because Saturn isn't going to just give you anything. And so these are the kinds of things that we've been seeing, stuff that just really got turned upside down while Saturn was in Aquarius. Now, Saturn in ancient astrology is the ruler. People try to make it like Saturn don't rule Aquarius anymore. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It is both Aquarius and Uranus that rule Aquarius. So, um, in ancient astrology, Saturn is actually in a good place in in Aquarius, but only after a while do you see an up level. A lot of people who are Aquarius, they go long periods of time feeling like I am not making any progress. And then all of a sudden they get just elevated very quickly. So the question that I wonder is, what did we do during Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, that will allow us to be able to um, eventually see an up level. If you didn't see the up level while you were in Aquarius, maybe you laid the groundwork for it. What have we done on a societal level to lay a groundwork for up level in society? This is what Saturn has been really pushing for us to do. Now, there have been a lot of restrictions. There's an astrology, y'all have heard me mention her a little bit. Good person, it's nothing personal, but she has triggered me talking about certain things where I'm like, you know what? A lot of us been suffering for a long time. You know, I speak as an African American, and all of a sudden, people who weren't used to being imposed upon. Now, she's from another country, so I'm not saying it's necessarily easy from where she's from, but make no mistake about it. If you do not have a lived experience of somebody who lives oppressed everywhere they go in the world, or who potentially could be, because I'm not trying to speak oppression into Black people's lives, but sometimes people have a very different lived experience and you don't understand it. And now all of a sudden people felt imposed upon their rights because, Aquarius is the sign that has to do with rights. They feel imposed upon. And now, everybody's rebelling because Aquarius will bring rebellion. But look at how a lot of the rebellion would get squished and squashed and all that. So, I'll come back to some examples as they come to my mind. But now that Saturn is moving into Pisces, we are going to be feeling a tightness, a constriction, because that's what Saturn does. It constricts, it tightens up things. So, one other thing, let me go back to Aquarius real quick. One of the things that we noticed while Saturn was in Aquarius, and Jupiter Jupiter kind of helped to trigger this because it was moving between Pisces and Aries, is a loss of rights, because Aquarius is everybody has equal rights. We are, we are egalitarian. This society is everyone's supposed to have the same thing. Nobody's better than anybody else. But Saturn came through and really brought some tightness and some restrictions around people's rights. Again, I don't know about everywhere in the world, but we know women, we feel under attack with what's going on here in the United States. Sovereignty over our bodies is under attack. And then let's not forget about, I should say, people who are trans. Oh my God. This is insanity, especially trans children. Like, y'all coming after trans children for real? Wow. Um, and gay marriage. If we're going to live in an equal society, if we're going to be living in a world where people get to be who they were supposed to be, or, who they say they are, and however they want to live, Aquarius is about everyone having the same thing, but everyone's benefiting. So it's people get to be who they want to be, like who people are married to, or how people are showing up in the world and identifying themselves, no matter how they were born. They're, identifying however they feel led in their body and their minds and their hearts. If we are all going to have freedom of expression, that's not hurting anybody. It's not hurting anybody. That's Aquarius. All of this, we felt this tightening, we felt this restriction. Now, Pluto is going to come in and do something different, right? Pluto will bring something different. And I need to really think about electricity, because that's something I want to talk about with the Pluto, is the electricity. Because I said in another video that I made, I really do think that there will be topics around electricity that will come to the forefront. And sure enough, these last 4 or 5 days, I'm in Tennessee, there have been people days with no electricity. Another thing is air. A lot of topics will come up around air with Pluto being there. And sure enough, these last few days here in Tennessee, we had straight line winds that were blew a lot of trees over and knocked out the electricity for people or whatever. So I don't know if Saturn brought that up while it was in Aquarius, but definitely these kinds of topics come to the forefront. Maybe there was a lot of I don't know. Let me not ponder too much or try to remember too much without it just being there. So Saturn going into Pisces, it is going to create, it's going to come in and it's just going to start looking for, like what's wrong, where's there a lack of plan. And Saturn is a karmic planet, so it's going to come in, it's going to dole out karma, be it good or bad. And so I think personally we're going to have bad karma regarding water. We saw what happened in East Palestine, Ohio. That's nothing, like that has been going on for a while, but it's getting exacerbated. And also other topics around water is like these islands, because Pisces is the islands. So, water and just all the things that happen on these islands when these not tornadoes, hurricanes come through, or it'll be something like that. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out because Saturn is cold. So I don't know if it's going to is it going to bring back some of our melting, icebergs? Or is it gonna create more restriction around what's happening so that water is protected? Um, it all depends on the powers that be, because Saturn, it can be those who are oppressed, but it also can be the oppressor. Let's just be 100 about that. So, I just think that Saturn and Aquarius also kind of help to show government overreach. No matter how you're looking at government, all of us have different views of how the government is overreaching. It brought up where does government stop and our personal freedoms begin, especially when it comes to a societal level. It created all of that kind of discussion. We saw it play out on the world level across all, every country was dealing with this. And so it's going to bring the same thing, but it's just going to be more on Piscean topics. Okay. So Pisces is also dreams. I think that Saturn in your dreams is you're thinking about karmic stuff. You're thinking about, the way I described it to the young lady I was talking to today was Saturn in your dreams is you're dreaming about that teacher that was very, very strict when you were a kid. And you're just like, oh my gosh, my teacher was in my dreams. And I remember them being so hard on us and fussing at us. And, Saturn in Pisces is not necessarily going to bring more compassion, to be honest with you. It will bring more of if you deserve compassion, you're going to get compassion, but it's more of going to be tough love. I'm gonna come in and help you get on your feet. That's the kind of compassion I'm gonna give you. It's not gonna be no tears being cried. And it's actually may show how little compassion people have, or how much compassion people have. Is Saturn in Pisces, I think, is like that show that we see. I think maybe it's based in Canada, where they go around and create a scenario where somebody's in trouble and sees how people respond to that person. That's kind of how I see Saturn in Pisces when it comes to the compassion of Pisces. I think that it's going to do one or two things in terms of spirituality. It could bring religious zealous, a lot of people are going to be very religious and blind faith. And, we hear about people who are, there's some dear leader and people will just follow this dear leader over the cliff. The dear leader, no matter what the dear leader says do, they're going to do it. And the people will follow them over that cliff. And, it's going to be all these stories. And they're there already. Don't get me wrong. They're there already. But Saturn is going to expose all of this. I think it could even bring even more, but Saturn is really here to kind of be like, what's right, what's wrong, and it's no nonsense. It's like everything is going to be, this Pisces energy is like not going to be soft. It's not going to feel soft and cuddly. Saturn is never soft and cuddly. As a matter of fact, in ancient astrology, it's called the Great Malefic planet. So these are things to be thinking about with Saturn in Pisces. Pisces also has to do with art. So it could bring masterpieces, but it may be from people who have been at it for a very long time. So people who've been doing Piscean things for a very long time could find themselves benefiting from it. Um, it will bring structure where Pisces is not typically having a lot of structure, and that's where I say people who do charitable work, it could feel like there's not a lot of money available, but I just think the ones who have mastered being charitable will benefit from it because Saturn is like a dinosaur. And so maybe the new nonprofits or new charitable organizations will struggle, but the dinosaurs of this kind of work will find that they're able to get stronger. Now, that's not to say it'll be easy because it's not easy. Saturn is not easy. Okay. But they can find that some may not. Like if you're weak, Saturn is going to reveal your weaknesses. And if you're not strong enough to survive, Saturn will be like, just shut her down, shut them down, shut that person down, shut that organization down. Okay, let me see. I also want to talk about dreams. Again, I had mentioned is that teacher. Saturn can make dreams like you're not having dreams. Or if you're having dreams, they're very much like about practical things. Uh, I think it could bring up a lot of topics around sleep. And people start feeling like I'm just not getting a lot of sleep. I don't know why I don't feel like I'm not getting enough sleep. It's because Pisces rules sleep and Saturn rules restriction. Saturn is going to have all of us like, I got to learn how to sleep better because I'm not getting a lot of sleep. So I got to make sure I get good sleep when I'm sleeping. Um, and so, yeah, it could restrict our dreams in terms of like when we're asleep, we're just like, I'm not dreaming much while I'm asleep. It could bring, let me see here. I said I want to talk largely about well, that's the larger way of looking at it too. I want y'all to have like a working knowledge of what this could look like for you. And so these are all things that are ruled by Pisces, that Saturn, these are the different ways that Saturn could affect it. But it definitely is bringing change. It will be in Pisces until 2026. Oh my God. I'm like, that's a long time. Um, so yeah. So yeah, I think religion, I think we'll see a lot of topics in religion, a lot of topics when it comes to water. Oh, when it comes to the hospitals, prisons, um, labs, because Pisces rules labs. These are all going to be topics that come to the forefront. And pharmaceuticals. So let's get ready to see what goes down with the pharmaceutical industry. And I just think it's important for us to not be passive bystanders. And that it's like, no, we're going to be putting energy and vibration out there that is for the highest and greatest good of everyone. Okay, so I want to go on into Pluto, which I've talked about Aquarius quite a bit, but let me just say this because it's on my mind now. Pluto going into Aquarius, within 2 weeks, a couple of weeks of Saturn going into Pisces, this is going to create a lot of change. I mean, like it's gonna feel like overnight, things are very, very different in the world, and that is because astrologically they are. Then we have some other things that'll happen later in the spring that will bring even more change and transformation because there's gonna be it's a lot of newness happening. And Pluto and Saturn, they're in the last 2 signs of the astrological wheel, the zodiac wheel. And so because they're in the last 2 signs, their topics are kind of sort of like global because Aquarius and Pisces, these are global signs, that have to do with civilization. It has to do with, the collective. These are collective signs. That's what I was trying to say. And so, with these being collective signs, you know, first and foremost, we will see the greatest changes happening in the collective. Is why I started out the way that I did with this video. But also, they are the last 2 signs of the zodiac, which means that they are addressing topics that are about like evolving up. And this society is, yeah, we are in a place where we've got to evolve up. I'm going to say it that way. So in 2000, first of all, Jupiter is in Aries right now. That's already kicking off something new because Aries is the first sign of the astrological wheel, and it's actually getting into the foundational signs. So it's kind of like Jupiter's going through and kind of leading the way for when Saturn starts coming through. Because Pluto, we got a little ways with Pluto, but Saturn's next sign after Pisces is Aries. So it's kind of like this peeling away of the old, but also we're dipping our toe into the new with Jupiter, leading the way. Actually, Uranus, actually, now that I think about it, led the way because it was in Aries up until about 2000, I think 18, 19, something like that. And now it's in Taurus. So we have those two generational planets or societal planets moving forward and like creating a whole new foundation. Saturn is tying something up with going into Pisces. Something is being tied up where it's kind of like once it comes out of Pisces, some door is closed. And we are truly like, we are definitely going to be birthed anew as a society on a whole new level. And then we have Pluto moving into Aquarius, which is about advancement. And Pluto is the planet that has to do with transformation. It is the great transformer. And so with Pluto moving into this sign that has to do with advancement and the collective and everybody having their fair share and society, it's just I honestly think that Pluto is there. It's kind of like sometimes when I look at astrology, I can see how the universe is like, y'all, I got you. I know exactly what I'm doing. Please, what is your destiny? Do that. But I got you on this higher level of this collective, right? Because all these other signs are now in the foundational. Once Saturn goes into Aries in 2026, all of these signs are going to be at the foundational part. Like it's a whole new world. We're establishing a whole new foundation. The world is going to become so new and different that even maybe our grandparents who sort of maybe knew this time, because I have friends who are my age and their grandparents are still alive. um, the grandparents kind of saw this space age time. They will think that is like, I don't even know that word. Like if they were to come back, they would be like, I don't even know that. Just like if my grandparents were alive now, they would be blown away by how the world looks, right? So it's gonna be like that. But Saturn is kind of like tying up some loose ends. It's kind of like we're getting ready to really hunker down because the next thing is new birth, new beginnings. And then, but I think Pluto is an Aquarius because it's kind of like, yeah, we got this foundation that's being laid, but where are we really going? And Pluto is like, I'll tell you, just as soon as I get into Aquarius, I will show you where you're headed. You're gonna change. You're gonna go in a whole new direction. Age of Aquarius is here. Um, and this is, let me just qualify this because I know people listen to a lot of different astrologers, okay? Every astrologer is going to share based on how they have been taught. I'm telling y'all right here, right now. Some of this is channel, and some of this is, a lot of it is what I have learned from my astrology teachers. And so, if you are listening to both people who use the Western chart and the Vedic chart, Vedic people are talking very differently, and what they have to say is correct. Okay. There's some Western astrologers, I don't even get this because I'm like not arguing over certain things. We're not in the age of Aquarius. Okay, whatever. Don't know why you think that, but okay, that's fine. You just need to, understand you're going to hear different things. Don't be confused by any of it. Listen to it. Let your spirit speak to you about what makes the most sense. Also, be like my aunt, be a spiritual scientist and look at what is actually happening in the world. And you will be able to match up what you hear each one of us saying. You're going to be like, okay, so and so said this, and I actually see it. Because there've been a lot of times people have made predictions in astrology. And I'm like, okay, I don't see it. And sometimes people make predictions in astrology I can't stand, and it's exactly what happens. um, because astrologers are people with opinions. I have one, well, there's two that typically seem very objective, and they are my favorite astrologers. I don't like astrologers who put too much spin on astrology. Just give it to me, give me the straight facts. I'm a smart woman, I can figure it out. And that's how I'm talking to you. So, Pluto going into Aquarius is really and truly like, I'm excited and I'm scared at the same time. Um, because this is my first time consciously watching Pluto move into a new sign, and I know astrology. What excites me is Aquarius is about fairness. Aquarius is one of my astrology teachers described it as it's like, you could think of it as sort of like the sign of um socialism, because it's like everyone needs to have the same thing. We need to have a society that's benefiting everybody. Aquarius means everyone's benefiting. And with Saturn being there, we saw who wasn't benefiting. So when I think of Pluto going into Aquarius, I think to myself, I am so frustrated with seeing people who are not hurting anybody being discriminated against. I dislike, I am one who is for having a government. I'm not anti-government. I am I am for democracy, and I believe that government has a great place. Like, I love that I live in a place where, I don't have to try to figure out the roads. They come and pick up my trash. I pay taxes. They come pick up my trash. I like the traffic lights, no disrespect if people live in a place where there's less government, support. I'll just tell you what I saw when I was in Dominican Republic in the countryside. It's called El Valle. These people did not have lights. Sometimes it was every day the lights were out between, I think it was 12 and 4. The government would turn the lights out. I don't know why, I can't remember. But the people who weren't from El Valle, they were like from Samaná, the city of Samaná. They had their lights all the time. They would be like, "Oh no, I'm not from El Valle. I just work here," because we were at a treehouse resort there. Um, there was at some point where the lights were out and it was taking too long, like this bat storm came through, and it was taking too long for the government to come out and put the lights out. And the way the citizens there got the government's attention was they would just get out in the streets and just start doing all kinds of crazy things. Like, I'm gonna call it protesting, but it looked almost like they were just kind of like messing up their own area. Um, like the way people would drive, it almost seemed like there was no stop signs, no traffic lights. Used to be where I am, there's a lot of people moving in from other places. I live in the South. And so the South can be kind of slow, but people starting to move here from places where people drive fast. It's a lot of traffic, and you can feel the difference here. And I used to think this is the craziest place to drive. I still think there's certain parts of where I live where people do this high speed driving and it's ridiculous and it's unsafe. But after I came back from Dominican Republic, I was like, "Oh, we good here." Cuz at least we got at least we have, most people are gonna follow what the rules of the road are. Whereas there, I was just like, "Are there rules of the road?" I was like terrified, right? Government has its place and everyone gets to decide. Maybe people want to live in a place where there's less government and there's things like that going on. I personally enjoy it. And so that is Aquarius. Aquarius is kind of like we can have, or what I was saying was Aquarius, Pluto in Capricorn helped us to see where the government was just doing too much. And, Saturn in Aquarius was helping us to see where the government was not doing enough, doing too much. It was just like Saturn was showing us quite a bit about governments around the world and how much, people were getting up protesting, whatever side you were on, whatever, doesn't matter to me. It's just what happened, right? So Pluto is now going to come into um, Aquarius, and I think it's going to start creating true democracy in some places. And the Aquarius is the people sign. Now, Saturn been in Aquarius, we protested, but I just think that Saturn was coming through kind of like, I'm here to show y'all what y'all doing right and what you're not doing right. And Pluto coming in is like, well, we getting ready to, it don't matter what you think. You getting ready to change. Everything is getting ready to change. Everything is getting ready to transform. And whatever this notion of democracy is going to become a bigger thing. It could be some blending of it because, again, countries where people have access to, healthcare, whether they paying taxes for it or not, which they are, um, but they don't go into debt like we do here in the United States. So those kind of countries, I think that kind of healthcare can be something that becomes the norm. Y- Um, um, let's see here, healthcare where parents get a lot of time off to, as new parents, and they get a lot of leave. And I know people are saying that when you live in a culture that's more homogenous, these things are easier, but I think that we're so mixed up now that we are homogenous. That's what makes us homogenous. We all mixed up. Don't matter what we look like. We all got ancestors from all over the world. It's just how it is, right? So because Aquarius is the people's sign, we are going to be like, we demand that we have a society that works for everybody. And we will be setting up governments that make sure that happens. And so what we have seen with everything that has been revealed with all of these planets going through these different signs, Jupiter has just been revealing all kinds of things. Jupiter in Scorpio brought up the Me Too movement. When Jupiter was in Scorpio, that's when we had Me Too. Jupiter in Sagittarius, it was all kinds of stuff coming up about religion. Jupiter in, also higher education. Jupiter in Capricorn, um, that was the year that the whole earth got reset because Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto were all in Capricorn. So, but I will say that to me, that was a time where people actually began to realize that they had some inner reserves that they didn't know that they had because Jupiter connected with Pluto. And then Jupiter in Aquarius has really brought up a lot of topics around, well, it's the same ones that I mentioned with Saturn. But I think Jupiter being there is part of the part that was, well, it did exacerbate some of the topics that I have mentioned earlier, but I also think Jupiter being there is what helped to maybe bring some advancements in society. And it definitely ushered in the age of Aquarius because it came in with uh, Saturn, and that's what is called the royal conjunction. They will bring in usher in a new age. And then Jupiter in Pisces, um, I did not, I don't know if I really like Jupiter in Pisces. Maybe that brought up topics of this epidemic that is happening with drug use. Oh my God. I think it exacerbated a lot of stuff in Pisces. I think that also Jupiter in Aquarius brought up a lot of people were kind of like, ooh, astrology. Jupiter in Pisces maybe brought up a lot of new music. I don't know. I'm not keeping up with music a lot, but brought a lot of music and art, brought a lot of maybe even more topics around the water. And now Jupiter in Aries is going to be bringing up topics around the body, but also a lot going on with sports and the military. And so it just kind of like comes through and brings up these topics. And then the other ones are kind of like addressing them as we go. And so Pluto in Capricorn, where it's now, really brought up a lot about the government overreach and just a lot of problem with corporations. Oh my gosh, have I forgotten the evil corporations? Not all corporations are evil. But we kind of see like the CEOs making all this money. Pluto in Aquarius is like, nah, bruh. We're not getting ready to have that anymore. Now, I do think tech giants are going to take off. I think that we're going to see the people who are in charge of tech. See, it's going to move from government power to tech power. So whoever is in charge of tech, that's who we will see be the most powerful in the Aquarian society. But the people, because Aquarius is the people, it's just going to change us as a human race. Actually, it's just going to change the way we show up in the world. I've even heard things like universal basic income. We never heard of that growing up. That was not a thing. And so universal basic income could actually become something that is more common. It is in other societies that are more Aquarian already. I think they are going to be sort of like the prototypes, or they were kind of like leading the way of where the world is going. But it won't be fun initially. Saturn in Pisces is going to be in the first 7 degrees of Pisces in this year and into the top of next year. And so when a planet first comes into a sign, it's dishevelment, it's hard. People have to get used to it. And it's hard enough just having Saturn move into a new sign, but then Pluto does it at the end of March. So just within a couple of weeks, they're changing signs. And so it will create dishevelment. And then Pluto trying to finish up the work it was doing inside of Capricorn is still like something will be left hanging in the balance. And Pluto is like, I'm getting ready to go in this other room, but I'm going to come back in the Capricorn and I'm going to see what else we're getting ready to just tie up these loose ends. We're getting ready to take it home, baby, because I'm about to be done with this room called Capricorn. And then I'm going to go into Aquarius and handle my business over in Aquarius. I think this is just a lot of very challenging energy. And this is what was making me say, I didn't think 2023 was going to be a fun year. I didn't think it would be as bad as 2020, but I think it's going to be rough. I don't think any year has felt easy since 2020, to be honest with you. They're just not as bad. But I do think that this has the potential to be a rough year because people are so resistant to change. But once we get to 2024, we'll be more used to it. But I made another video that was just like, I was saying to you all, don't lose it. Don't trip. It's divine feminine beings. We need to step up to the plate and say, as a powerful creatrix, this is what I command for society. What goodness are you speaking into society? That's what we need to be focused on. And have faith. Our ancestors, doesn't matter where they came from, they have been through far harder times than we have ever known. And that's what a lot of us, having known some hard times, having seen some rough stuff, experienced some rough stuff, had bad things happen to us. There's still a level of benefit that we have from being born right now that our ancestors didn't have. It just blows my mind that when I was born, women didn't have they didn't have sovereignty over their bodies. They could not just get birth control. For sure couldn't just end a pregnancy if that was their decision, right? And so wasn't that long ago. For those of us who are African American, we know our ancestors were just barely getting civil rights not so long ago. I've heard women who are, a little older than me, not even much older than me, when they were working, all of the sexual harassment they had to put up with in the workplace and had no recourse. And we can go back as far as we want to. Doesn't take us going back very far to know that honestly, we have a chance of a lifetime, an opportunity to command that the universe wrap around our best wishes for the world. And so, yeah, I just don't want y'all to be discouraged. I want y'all to be encouraged. I want y'all to know that you were born for such a time as this, and that these planets, Pluto and Saturn, they will make you better. They will help you to get where you want to go if you embrace the change that they're asking you to make. Be the change you wish to see, but also be the change that maybe you don't want to make. But Pluto and Saturn is going to be like, but we're getting ready to do this, baby girl. So listen to all the videos that you want to listen to. I'm not even giving an exhaustive meaning of what this could be or whatever, because it could be very, what's the word? There's a lot of layers to this. But one thing is for sure, this is about a change that we're seeing in society. And part of it is the change that we're seeing in society means that you must change. And so you have to look at both. You have to look at personal, you have to look at societal. A lot of times in astrology, people only want to know, how does this affect me? And I'm here to tell you that these changes are not just about you, they're about you plus society, you plus your community. And so it's really, really important to understand that. The other thing, just to kind of bring it back home, is you cannot just look at these two. Number one, you cannot just look at these two transits and draw a conclusion about anything, because there's a lot in play. You heard me refer to some of the other planets as I was talking. The other thing is, yeah, there's other transits going on. And yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. It's early in the morning and my mind isn't already awake. So you can't just look at these two transits. Other transits are going on. And so it's just best to follow your heart and live your destiny. And whatever changes you're being asked to make them. And this time will not feel so much like a struggle. Hope that this has been helpful. And yeah, this is my contribution to helping the sisters apply astrology in a practical manner that brings real results. Thank you and take care.